Good afternoon. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks. Today is October 1st, and let me start with a roll call. I'm Rafael Leon, Chairman of the Commission, and I'm going to call the Commissioner's name, and as I call them, please just reply here or present and confirm that you can both hear me and see me. Commissioner Hughes.
Present, I can hear and see you.
Commissioner Cox.
Present, I can hear and see you.
Commissioner Wong. Commissioner Wong. I know that he's here, but we'll confirm with him in a minute. Commissioner Burns. Commissioner Burns. Okay, let's move on to Commissioner Yekovich. I don't see Commissioner Yekovich here. Commissioner Osmond.
I'm here and I can see you.
Thank you. Commissioner Tolliver.
Present and I can see you.
Commissioner Aguirre.
Present, I can hear you and see you.
Again, Commissioner Wong.
Here, I can hear and see you.
And Commissioner Burns. I know that Commissioner Burns was here, but maybe she was disconnected. But in any case, we do have a quorum, so we'll proceed with the meeting. This is actually our 7th virtual meeting, but I still have to state the obvious. So let me go through the procedures of announcing the following. Earlier this year, Governor Pritzker signed Public Act 101-0640, making certain amendments to the Open Meetings Act so that we, along with other boards and commissions, can continue to host virtual meetings during this COVID-19 public health emergency, provided that certain conditions are met. One of those conditions is that I, as head of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks, determine that an in-person meeting of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks is not practical or prudent. I want to make sure our virtual meeting meets all the conditions of the Open Meetings Act as amended. Therefore, I'm making a determination pursuant to Section 7E2 of the Open Meetings Act that an in-person meeting of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks is not practical or prudent. Similarly, I'm also making a determination pursuant to Section 7E5 that because of the disaster as declared by the governor, it is unfeasible for at least one member of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks or its chief administrative officer or its chief legal officer to be physically present at the meeting place, in as much as there is no physical meeting place at this time. Pursuant to a resolution adopted by the Commission on Chicago Landmarks on June 4th, 2020, regarding the chairman's emergency rulemaking powers, I issued emergency rules governing the conduct of remote public commission meetings and provisions for remote public participation. This was effective June 23rd, 2020, in response to the COVID-19 emergency. These rules were posted on the Commission's website in line with these emergency rules. Today's regular Commission meeting is a virtual meeting being simulcast to the general public via live stream. Commission meetings have been held virtually since May of this year. Meetings are structured to minimize the chances for technical difficulties. Members of the general public have been encouraged to submit written statements in advance of the meeting, and these have been posted on the Commission's website and are available for public view during the virtual meeting at www.chicago.gov/CCL. Members of the public deciding to speak at today's meeting were required to register before the meeting, and verbal statements by the public for all agenda items will take place at the beginning of the meeting. Applicants and their representatives, as well as aldermen, were asked to contact staff if they desire to speak, and they will be able to do so after the staff presentation on any given specific project. 4 members of the general public have signed up to speak and were provided instructions regarding on how to do so. I would like to call upon these people now. 2 people have signed up to speak on agenda item number 2, the DPD report for the Emmett Thiel and Mammy Thiel Mobley House. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and the first person is Mary Lou Seidel. Mary Lou? Yes, is Mary Lou there?
Here I go. I'm being unmuted now. Thank you. My name is Mary Lou Seidel. I am the Director of Community Engagement at Preservation Chicago. The community response to the Emmett Thiel and Mammy Thiel Mobley House landmark nomination is a testament to the power of place to tell a painful but important story in our nation's history. We have a long way to go to get to equity in America, but every small step in the right direction makes a difference. Honoring places that are essential to African American history is a positive step toward acknowledgement, and we hope one day reconciliation. Our city and country grow stronger when we elevate the history of people of color. The story that comes from this place resonates with all of us, and it is commendable that we are bestowing upon it a Chicago Landmark designation. Thank you again to the Historic Preservation Division staff, the Commission on Chicago Landmarks, and Alderwoman Jeanette Taylor for bringing forward this nomination for the Emmett Thiel and Mammy Thiel Mobley House. Thanks as well to Jonathan Solomon, who co-authored this nomination and who continues to work at saving and restoring this humble home. Finally, Blackson Green and Naomi Davis deserve the highest praise for having a vision for this home and for standing up for the power of the West Woodlawn community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Next person is Ward Miller. Is Ward here?
Mr. Miller, can you hear me, sir? Can you hear me, commissioners?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. I'm Ward Miller, Executive Director of Preservation Chicago. It's a great honor that we at Preservation Chicago fully support the Chicago Landmark designation and report from the City of Chicago's Department of Planning and Development for the Emmett Thiel and Mammy Thiel Mobley House. We are proud to assist in the preparation of research and documents for this landmark designation and to bring attention to this home, which has been a site of pilgrimage to so many. We are hopeful that the recognition of this important site will be a further reminder of its history and link to the Thiel family, the tragic story of Emmett Thiel, a 14-year-old child caught in a nightmare of events in Mississippi, and remembering the courage of his mother, Mammy Thiel Mobley, to never forget. And of course, her efforts to share with the world the brutal injustices of our society and to work towards a better nation and equality for all. We, along with members of the Thiel family, Alderwoman Taylor, members of the West Woodlawn, Hyde Park, and Preservation community all support the designation of this important home belonging to Emmett Thiel, Mammy Thiel Mobley, and their family, and noting its important history and link to the national civil rights movement. This past week, on approximately the 65th anniversary of Emmett Till's funeral, the National Trust for Historic Preservation announced their 11 most endangered buildings in America, which included Robert's Temple Church of God in Christ, where Emmett's visitation and funeral was held. This was a designated landmark dating back to 2005, 2006, and we all helped in the pursuit of this designation back then. We at Preservation Chicago want to encourage the City of Chicago, the Department of Planning and Development's Historic Preservation Division to assist and to work with the congregation and ownership towards a resolution of required structural repairs and to stabilize this landmark to ensure its future. We are also hopeful that other sites, both cultural and historical, of architectural significance and of great architectural character, will become a major component of the city's Invest South and West program, looking to the immediate future. We also, as a city, need other tools to protect important buildings and to grow communities across Chicago in a holistic manner, and would implore the use of conservation districts to be introduced as neighborhood character districts in the immediate future. However, time is of the essence, and these ideas and proposals have been languishing. We really want to consider this to move forward. Thank you for your consideration and the support of the Emmett Till and Mammy Till Mobley House and home as a designated landmark. This is just the right time in history to finally recognize this building. Thank you.
Thank you, Ward. Exactly 3 minutes. Thank you. And don't go away, because you and 2 other members of the general public have signed up to speak on agenda item number 4, the final designation of the Perkins Nordine house. So, Ward, let me call on you. Ward Miller.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you again for the records. For the record, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Ward Miller with Preservation Chicago. We at Preservation Chicago fully support the Chicago landmark and final landmark recommendation by the Commission on Chicago Landmarks for the Perkins Nordine house. The house is an amazing structure by the architectural firm of Pond and Pond, brothers Irving and Allen, known for their wide range of fine quality architectural commissions, ranging from university and school buildings to settlement houses, YMCAs, clubhouses, and residences. The Perkins Nordine residence is no exception to this continuum of finely crafted buildings, with several of their buildings recognized as designated Chicago landmarks or as part of designated Chicago landmark districts. In Chicago, the architectural work of the buildings of Pond and Pond are considered first rate in every regard, with comparisons often to many of Chicago's finest top-tier architects. Individual landmarks include the Jane Addams Hull House Settlement Buildings and Dining Hall Building, the American School of Correspondence, and the Northwestern University Settlement House. The firm was noted for their modernist works of the period and often incorporated arts and crafts details into their buildings, with the Perkins Nordine exhibiting many of these qualities. The home was constructed for Herbert Perkins, an executive with the McCormick Harvesting Machine Company, a Chicago-based company founded by industrialist Cyrus McCormick, and later known as International Harvester, today known as Navistar. This home was also very much in the spirit and visions of John L. Cochran, a suburban real estate developer and considered one of the founders and promoters of Chicago's Edgewater community. Also, the home's long association over 70 years with its most recent owner, Ken Nordine, a spoken word artist, is of great significance in its own right. Thank you for your consideration of support of final landmark recommendation for the Perkins Nordine house. We at Preservation Chicago work with many individuals and organizations towards this landmark effort and wish to thank most of all the Edgewater Historical Society, members of the Edgewater community, and specifically Bob Riemer, Leroy Blomert, Kathy Gemmerly, Tom Green, along with Alderman Harry Osterman and the DPD Historic Preservation staff, as well as the current owners. Thanks to each of you for your commitment to this historic house.
Thank you, Ward. May we now hear from Mr. Robert Riemer?
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Robert Riemer. I'm president of the Edgewater Historical Society. And I'd like to thank Ward for that nice, nice kudos. I'm here also to support the final landmark recommendation for the 6106 North Kenmore building, the Perkins Nordine house. First, I'd like to really commend your staff of the Landmarks Commission and Planning and Development for the excellent, really excellent and thorough report they did when you considered the initial recommendation at your prior meeting. It's a phenomenal report, and we hope to keep that as an important document in our, as we look toward maintaining the historic character of this neighborhood. This landmark status has really broad support in our community, from block clubs to neighbors. I'm a neighbor. I just live a block and a half away, and I can attest to the fact that this is a real anchor to maintain the character of the building. This is a neighborhood that had been completely populated by these significant large single-family homes with prominent architects, most of which have been cleared away, many by the 4+1s over the years. But this is one of the few remaining examples of the original Cochrane Edgewater. So for that reason, this is very, very important to us. And it's also an anchor for us looking ahead to conservation, preservation, and development issues as they come down the road facing Edgewater. I'd really like to thank Ward Miller in particular and Preservation Chicago, as well as Landmarks Illinois. They were tremendous, tremendous allies throughout this fight. And I want to thank the people in our Historic Sites Committee, the Edgewater Historical Society, and also Alderman Osterman for his support for this landmark status. This is going to have a tremendous impact. It's going to be a great boost for the neighborhood. And we understand that the people who bought the house are going to become wonderful neighbors. And we really look forward to welcoming them to Edgewater. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Lisa DiChiara.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Lisa DiChiara, Landmarks, Illinois. We are obviously fully in support of this final landmark recommendation for the Perkins Nordine house, and I really cannot add much more to what Ward and Bob already said, because they said it so eloquently, and they said everything that there is to say in terms of the importance of this house, the importance of the architect, the importance of the neighborhood, and what it means for the neighborhood. And I really just want to again throw out some kudos, because Edgewater Historical Society, from my perspective, really exemplifies a local boots on the ground advocacy organization that is so important to the work of keeping neighborhoods vibrant. And I really want to commend their leadership. They first reached out to us at Landmarks Illinois and Preservation Chicago in June of 2019. This was not some last minute effort. I know they had been in years worth of communication with Mr. Nordine. There was always focus on the importance of this house and ultimately wanting to protect it. Landmarks Illinois and Preservation Chicago, we just end up being the hand holders. I really want to emphasize that Edgewater Historical Society is just a great model for other neighborhoods and other communities that are looking to find ways to really advocate for the historic resources that they view important to their community. So I want to put that out there, as well as additional thanks also to Alderman Osterman and the Historic Preservation Division staff for all their help. I also want to really take a minute to acknowledge our long and missed friend, Terry Tatum, because as we all know, Terry died. And he was a long, wonderful member of the Historic Preservation Division staff. He was an expert in pond and pond. And this was the last historic designation report he worked on for the city of Chicago. And it was so important to him to be involved in it. And I know he volunteered his time. He did not do it for pay. So in a way, this is also a testament to his memory. So for that, again, thankful to all of you and really excited to see this designation move forward.
Thank you, Lisa. And thank you for, do I hear a feedback? No, not anymore. Thank you, Lisa. And thank you for those kind words about Terry. And thank you all for all the speakers in support of the transactions that we'll be reviewing today. So we don't have anybody else who signed up to testify, so we'll now go through the agenda. And the first item is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting of September 3rd. The commissioners, just as a reminder, when you wish to speak, please make a motion or second a motion. Please raise your hand, and then I will call upon you. I will then have to call everybody's name to confirm your vote on any given item. So I'd like to request a motion to approve the minutes of the September 3rd, 2020 regular commission meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wong. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Osman. And let me go through the roll call. Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Commissioner Cox.
Yes.
Commissioner Burns back?
I'm back, thank you.
Okay, for the record, Commissioner Burns is back, okay.
Yes, I've been back since you were your very first reading, thank you, and I abstain.
Okay. Commissioner Tolliver.
Yes.
Commissioner Aguirre.
Yes.
Is Commissioner, who am I missing? Yekovich here? No, okay. So I'm Chairman Leon, I ratify the vote, thank you. So the minutes are approved. Let's move to the next item, which is the report from the Department of Planning and Development for the Emmett, Thiel, and Mammy Thiel Mobley House located at 6427 South St. Lawrence, and Commissioner Cox will make the presentation. Commissioner.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pardon me, I'm just getting my notes out. So I guess I have the distinct honor to read the report to the Commission on Chicago Landmarks on the Emmett Thiel and Mammy Thiel Mobley House at 6427 South St. Lawrence Avenue. And the Department of Planning and Development finds that the proposed landmark designation of the Emmett Thiel and Mammy Thiel Mobley House supports the city's overall planning goals for the surrounding Woodlawn community area and is consistent with the city's governing policies and plans. Modest architecturally, but of monumental, historic, and memorial significance, the brick 2 flat at 6427 South St. Lawrence Avenue was the home of Emmett Thiel and his mother, Mammy Thiel Mobley. It was from this house that Emmett Thiel left to board a train with his great uncle to visit relatives in Mississippi in 1955. The 14-year-old Thiel was lynched during that trip. The tragic murder of Thiel became a symbol of the brutality of racism in America and roused the civil rights movement. The Thiel House is located within the Woodlawn community area, and the Department of Planning and Development and the Department of Housing are currently engaged with the Woodlawn community in several ways in order to steer and manage development related to and driven by larger investments in the neighborhood, particularly the Obama Presidential Center and the University of Chicago. Since 2005, there have been nearly a dozen plans developed for the Woodlawn community by the City of Chicago, nonprofit organizations, neighborhood groups, and others. Although the studies are a clear indicator of how many people care about Woodlawn and its success, they also underscore a deeper need for greater coordination and for one unified path forward. This year, the department has consolidated these community-driven plans into one report that provides a roadmap for city officials to work alongside community groups with a vested interest to ensure the future development decisions prioritize sustainability, long-term growth, and the needs of the Woodlawn community area. The Woodlawn Plan Consolidation Report was adopted by the Chicago Plan Commission in May of this year. Two important themes of the Consolidation Report are improvement of the physical realm of Woodlawn and support for existing residents. Landmark designation of the Thiel House supports these themes by ensuring that a site of memory for Emmett Till and the civil rights movement will be preserved in Woodlawn, allowing residents to remain connected with an important heritage site in their community. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Before we ask questions, let me call on Alderwoman Jeanette Taylor to make a statement.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you all to the Commission of Landmarks. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to say that I'm excited that we're going to get Emmett Till and Mammy Till's house landmarked, and that the department has, and its willingness, really the city's willingness, to not only work with our community, but to actually listen to what the community wants to see. Too often, gems in our community aren't preserved. And so this is exciting to me and our community to make sure that it happens. But most importantly, that this is happening with the community and not to the community. I want to thank everybody for their efforts. And I'm looking forward to the work to continue to make the 20th Ward what we know it can and what constituents want to see it become.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Commissioners, do you have any questions for either the Alderwoman or Commissioner Cox? Well, I'll start with a question. Most buildings that are designated landmarks receive a plaque from the city of Chicago. So the plan is to add one to this building, right? At the moment that the city council approves the designation.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. The department has the ability to commemorate, to fabricate and have placed a commemorative plaque for properties that are landmark designated. And so we believe that the Emmett Till House should have this recognition as soon as possible and do this independent of a timeline for the renovation of the house. And so we estimate that the formal landmark designation process could be completed by December of this year or January of 2021. As soon as the designation is finalized, DPD is committed to installing a bronze plaque on the building to commemorate its significance as a site of memory. The plaque can be fabricated in the first quarter of 2021 and installed on the building as soon as the temperatures reach 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So I would hope that the commission would support this. This is something we don't have to get a special appropriation or ask any special body permission to do. or once it is designated, we're committed to doing this.
Thank you. I have another question. Since you mentioned the plan for Woodlawn, my understanding is that there is a vacant lot next to it, and then there is another vacant lot next to the vacant lot that is owned by the city of Chicago. We don't know what the final use of this house is going to be. That's a private transaction. They still will have to comply with the regulations of the landmarks criteria. But what are the plans? Does the city have any plans for those two vacant lots?
Again, thank you for that question. We have to, I think we have to assume that this is going to be a site, however it's renovated, that will be a pilgrimage site. And to have some space around that building would allow for some future proposals that might be appropriate, that could be independent of the house. I mean, you just think about, I don't know if anyone has been to a memory garden. There are lots of things that we probably could come up with as a community that would stand outside of the house. I think those two lots are a part of keeping our options open for further commemoration. And I have already indicated to the staff that we should go about purchasing that, just so that we are able to better control the future around the Emmett House.
Thank you. I commend you for doing that, Commissioner. Commissioners, do you have any other questions?
I had my hand up.
Commissioner Wong.
Chairman. Yeah, the question I had was, when this was first up, and it was wonderful to meet the developer that had agreed to initiating this as a landmark property. I wanted to ask a little bit further about, where that has gone in terms of the renovation, particularly the shell of the building, to make sure that that is secured and buttoned up, but also what progress has been made, if any, regarding the, as Commissioner Cox has indicated, this being a memorial site, a pilgrimage site.
I don't know if the Landmarks staff is prepared to give any update, or the chair, any update on that matter?
Not at this time. My understanding is that the property owner is still looking at his options for the redevelopment of the property. I don't think that any work has started yet. And of course, whatever work is going to be done will have to come in front of the permit review committee for approval. So you, Commissioner Wong, will oversee that. But at this time, there are no specific plans for starting the construction. That's what I heard. I don't know whether the staff has heard anything to the contrary.
So this is Alderwoman Jeanette Taylor. Blacks and Greens is looking to purchase and actually put in a bid for the building. So that's the information that I got. So I'm not sure if the owner accepted the bid, but they did put a bid to purchase the property.
Okay, well, that's good to hear, but I think that we will be very concerned about the rehabilitation of the building, as that's the purview of the commission. The use, I'm glad to hear that there is a potential use, but that's for the community and the property owners to decide, as long as it meets the criteria of the city's redevelopment efforts. But thank you, Alderman, for that clarification. Commissioner Hughes.
Thank you so much. I'm extremely excited and happy to see that this this process is speeding up. I think it's necessary and needed. My question was for the alderman, actually. I would love to work with her and get in touch with her office. And I've tried multiple times and I'm not able to get through. So I wanted to, maybe we can talk offline or see how to better get in touch with her.
Of course, I give people my personal cell number, so you're more than welcome to have it.
If the staff could give that information to Commissioner Hughes, that would be great. I don't want you to
yeah, say it on the line.
Yourself,
I give it to everybody, not a big deal.
To the entire world. So
I know.
Everybody has it.
All right, but the staff will get you that information, Commissioner Hughes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Burns.
Hi, thank you. This is just sort of food for thought and for the commission's program committee, but also for the staff and for Alderman Taylor, or Alderwoman, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you prefer. But as I was thinking at our last meeting about the presentation, and particularly when you spoke about the Woodlawn community and the community's interest, I wonder, once hopefully this designation happens, if there's an opportunity in partnership with the Alderwoman's office and the DPT staff to look at opportunities to create some sort of connection between this site in Woodlawn, the Lorraine Hansberry House, which isn't too far away, and potentially some other monumental sites in terms of the history of civil rights in Chicago, which could be really interesting way to bolster the community more broadly. And if we're talking about the potential of this site being a memorial and a pilgrimage to connect it to multiple sites at a very low cost kind of way, it could be something as simple as like a virtual map. And then we can, as an entity, give a higher profile to numerous sites that have a lot of emotional and historical and community connection that could raise up all of them and perhaps bring some more resources when we think about this on a broader scale.
So the Hansberry?
I'm going to take that question because I think, if I recall correctly, Commissioner Cox at the last meeting indicated that it will be appropriate for the commission staff to start looking at potential landmarks, not for African-American historical sites, as well as Hispanic Latino sites that could be included, or it will make it easier for everybody to identify those landmarks. So I think this is a question more for the Department of Planning and Development to coordinate efforts to identify those sites and then eventually develop a plan.
So if I may, I think obviously, Commissioner Burns is onto something relative to the power of these sites, is that they have a geography, and very often, you get a fuller, better picture if you have more than one site, and so that people could have an itinerary, they could have a walking itinerary, they could have interpretation, you could imagine neighborhood docents. You could really make something of this. In order to do that work, we would need the help of preservation organizations here in Chicago, like the two that just testified today. And if they're willing to give us the assistance that we need, I think this would be a powerful, powerful project. We have other sites, the headquarters of Operation Push is another site. There are so many noted political figures that would fit and create a more complete narrative about the civil rights movement. But it is a project, and we would need partners. And I have asked staff, if we don't have the bandwidth, who could we partner with? Maybe, not to do the whole city, but to just use this as a spark, as a catalyst to tell this story. That's the story of, Woodlawn and the surrounds. I'm gonna after this meeting, I'm hoping that I will receive communication from the preservation organizations that they are ready to go, because they've done a lot of work thus far.
That's right. And it's very much appreciated, all the work that they have done. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Aguirre.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm really excited about this designation. I think, our city needs more physical reminders protected of the harm that our communities have endured. So I feel really strongly about the preservation of this structure. At the end of the day, it's a building, but the symbolism, the symbolic nature of it, reminding us of the harm, it's important. And not only that, but also to bring forward the conversation of the reparations that are needed in our communities that have been long time disinvested. So I'm really excited about the future of this building, the future plans. Also want to engage Alderwoman Taylor in this idea of bringing the community forward in this conversation. I think the best stewards of our history and legacy are our committee members. I think everyone around the city officials, our elected officials, our institutions, we're there to support and to offer our expertise and the value that our community members and residents see it serving their vision and purpose. So I would really encourage you, Alderwoman Taylor, to bring forward the community into this discussion. I know you work very closely with all of them and they trust you. And I think this is an important opportunity to bring their voices, elevate their voices. We know it's a private property, but I think what it represents, the symbolism that it has in this history of our city, it goes beyond the ownership as we know it. So again, I'm looking forward to see how all the institutional support comes to leverage this asset and this historic element in the Woodlawn community, but I would love to see the Woodlawn community defining what preservation and legacy means for them.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let me hear from Commissioner Hughes again, and then we can go back to the other woman. So Commissioner Hughes.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I don't want to derail us too much. I do want to highlight something that Commissioner Aguirre said, which is reparations. And I think a lot of my commentary last time, which again, I don't want to derail us, was related to that. So this is something that we need to think about as a city, as a commission, and moving forward and beyond. Reparations. I also want to say with the preservation groups, I love Lisa DeCure, Ward Miller. I also encourage us to, in addition to those groups, to touch community-based organizations and people. Lee Bay is someone that I think would be perfect for this type of a project, to work with those advocacy groups. And I also think we should get the Dusable Museum involved as well. So I think, there's more people to touch, especially from the African-American background, that can assist in this type of work and probably are, more connected to the history and being in these neighborhoods, living in these neighborhoods, having work that's based in these neighborhoods as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Let me call in Commissioner Osman and then the older woman, Commissioner Osman.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the Chicago Architecture Center has Open House Chicago coming up. We've already developed a very comprehensive app working with the community groups to develop a African-American trail in Bronzeville. And we can certainly share that information with the commissioner and with any of the preservation groups. But there is one that's underway, and it would not take a lot to extend it to these important landmarks.
Thank you. Alderwoman Taylor, would you like to respond or make any additional comments?
Sure, thank you. The Hansberry House was next, so it is already on the list in the ward. because I don't think people realize the type of history that the 20th Ward actually holds. And so it's a matter of us doing a trail like they have in Bronzeville. Bronzeville has a Bronzeville tourism center, and it takes you to all the historical homes that are there. And so I'm definitely in the works to making sure that happens, to make sure that we do more preservation. But the point of making sure that the community is involved, I don't move without my community. I'm a community organizer, and so I believe in organizing around what the community wants to see. And so I'm excited that this is the first of many steps that we'll take with the Commission on Landmarks to make sure that those spaces are preserved.
Thank you. So it seems to me from this discussion that there is more work to do for the entire area, but now we have to go back to the task at hand, which is the designation of this building as a landmark. So based on that, and nobody else would like to make any other comments, I'd like to request a motion to accept the department's—
Did the owner want to talk?
Is the owner— I don't think that the owner is present.
I saw him earlier.
Is the owner present?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Would you like to make a statement, Mr. McCray?
Yeah, I'll make a quick statement. From our last meeting, and the question came up if I made a decision. So since our last meeting, I had taken some time and met with several different folks and understand and heard what a lot of the folks on here had wanted to see happen. And I feel that I have made an agreement and signed a contract to sell the building to an organization in the Woodlawn community that we felt would be a great asset and can do wonderful things with the building. So I'm not sure exactly, it's really up to them what they're going to do. Their final plans, I don't know that, but I do know they're well connected and will do an awesome job. And so to the question, I have not done any construction to the place. I can't do any construction without permits. So hopefully in the next week or two, we'll have it wrapped up and it'll be off to in the great hands of the community. So
thank you, Mr. McCray.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Tolliver.
Yes, I just want to reiterate something that was said about working with, especially the Dusable Museum. There are other sites in that area that would be appropriate from an educational point of view for those people who don't know, that would be important to a walking trail. And preservationists wouldn't know this, but perhaps someone at Dusable who's engaged in that neighborhood history would. For example, Patricia Roberts Harris, who was U.S. Ambassador to Luxembourg and served as the head of HUD under Carter administration, grew up at 64th and King Drive. And there's several people that most people would not automatically know about, but who have made significant contributions and have come from that area. So it will be important to reach out to resources that have that kind of historical knowledge of the neighborhood.
Thank you. Based on the comments, I would like to ask the commission staff to come back to the commission. It doesn't have to be a formal report, but to give us an update. Probably in 6 months, let's give them some breathing time here to take a look at these issues that we have talked about today and how comprehensive of maybe a walking tour or a guide for these buildings. So if it's in 6 months, they can come back to us and make a brief presentation as an update to this destination. So I'm asking for them to do that.
And Chair,
yes.
And I also, given the owner's announcement that he's entering into agreement with a community-based organization, it makes the acquisition of the 2 parcels next door all the more critical. And our team will be looking into securing those so that they are a part of the larger strategy for preservation.
True. Mr. McCray, if you can notify the buyer of the property to contact the staff of the commission so they can talk about those parcels and the property itself. So any other comments before we proceed to vote on this item? There be none, I'd like to request a motion to accept the department's report for the Emmett, Thiel, and maybe Thiel Mobley House, and take the next step in the designation process to request the consent of the owner. And I think that was you, Commissioner Hughes, who moved.
Second.
Yes, seconded by Commissioner Tolliver. Let me, Commissioner Cox.
Yes.
Commissioner Wong. Commissioner Wong? Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Commissioner Osmond?
Yes.
Commissioner Aguirre?
Yes.
And I, as chairman, ratify the vote. Thank you. And we look forward to the report in about 6 months from now to see what the status is. Thank you. The next item is the report from the Department of Planning and Development for the Illinois Bell building located at 225 West Randolph Street. And Commissioner Cox will also make the presentation on this transaction.
Okay.
You're becoming an expert, Commissioner.
Well, again, my apologies because I'm trying to, close the Zoom and open up the document, and it has a mind of its own. So
it is. I can understand that.
So I am opening up the document, and yes, here it is. Okay. So this is the report to the Commission on Chicago landmarks on the Illinois Bell building at 225 West Randolph Street. The Department of Planning and Development finds that the proposed landmark designation of the Illinois Bell building supports the city's overall planning goals for the surrounding Loop community area and is consistent with the city's governing policies and plans. The Illinois Bell building at 225 West Randolph Street was designed by the Chicago architectural firm of Halliburton and Root and completed in 1966. When completed, the 31-story new formalist style building served as the new headquarters of the Illinois Bell Company, which had its beginnings in Chicago in the 1870s. At its zenith by the early 1970s, the company employed roughly 36,000 people in the Chicago area alone and made important contributions to the advancement of technology in the telephone industry. The Illinois Bell building is located in the northwestern section of Chicago's Central Business District. It is zone DC-16 Downtown Core District, and surrounding land uses generally include high-rise commercial office buildings with ground floor retail uses, as well as nearby regional and local transportation facilities. Recent local investment in the area includes significant projects underway at Chicago Union Station, the 55-story Bank of America building at 110 North Wacker Drive, as well as the continued redevelopment of Wolf Point. The Illinois Bell building itself is planned to undergo substantial rehabilitation as part of its planned reuse into a modern office building. DPD's recent planning for the broader area is consistent with the proposed landmark designation. The Central Area Action Plan, approved by the Chicago Plan Commission in 2009, states that, quote, historic preservation designations in the Central Loop should be used judiciously to balance redevelopment and renovation, end quote. In addition, the plan goes on to say that, quote, recycling older office buildings with small office uses, hotels, and residents should be encouraged, end quote. The proposed landmark designation is also consistent with both the transit-friendly development guide, station area typology, and the City of Chicago and Metro Station typology study. The Illinois Bell building is located within 2 blocks of the CTA's Washington Street elevated station and within very close proximity to both Chicago Union Station and the Olivie Transportation Center, which is all typed downtown core under both plans, encouraging the densest mix of uses and the highest concentration of employment within the entire metropolitan area. In conclusion, the landmark designation of the Illinois Bell building supports the city's overall planning and economic development goals for Chicago's Loop community area and is consistent with the city's governing policies and plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Before we ask questions, I believe Paul Shadle from representing the property owner is here. Would you like to speak?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. No, I have no comments. Just thanks for moving this matter forward. We're happy to have it at this stage.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for either the department or for Paul? I'll ask a question, Paul. Construction hasn't started, right?
It has not. This project depends for its financial feasibility on a Class L designation also, so we're working on that concurrently.
Okay. But once the designation is approved, and the Class L we approved last month, right? Then
Well, it still has to go through City Council though.
Right, right. Okay, so it will be approved, and then after the construction starts, what is the timing? Do you know the timing for completing the rehab of the building?
I do, sorry, let me, approximately, I believe it's about a 15-month construction process, and the expectation is that it would commence next spring.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions? I don't see anybody raising their hands, so then I would like to request a motion to accept the department's report for the Illinois Bell building. Do I have a motion? Move. Commissioner Burns is Commissioner Burns.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
So moved, Commissioner Osmond.
Commissioner Oswald. Okay, let me do a roll call. Commissioner Hughes. Commissioner Hughes?
Yes, sorry.
Commissioner Cox?
Yes.
Commissioner Wong?
Aye.
Commissioner Tolliver?
Yes.
Commissioner Aguirre?
Yes.
And I, as chairman, ratify the vote. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
The next item is the final landmark recommendation for the Perkins Nordine House, located at 6106 North Kenmore Avenue, and Kendalyn Han will make the presentation on behalf of the department. Kendalyn?
Thank you, Chairman Leon. Last December, the Historic Preservation Division received a permit application for demolition of 6106 North Kenmore Avenue. The building is rated orange, and therefore the permit was subject to the demolition delay ordinance. At its March 3rd meeting, the Commission found that the home met the necessary criteria for individual landmark designation and voted to preliminarily landmark the home. At the same meeting, the Commission issued a preliminary denial for the demolition permit application. This June, the applicants for the demolition permit notified staff that they had sold the home and subsequently withdrew the demolition permit application. At last month's meeting, the Commission voted to accept DPD's planning report, noting that the designation aligned with the city's planning goals, policies, and plans. On August 26th, the new owners of the home provided written consent for the designation. So today, the Commission is considering the proposed final landmark designation of the home. Next slide. The house is located in the Edgewater community area on the north side of Chicago, just a few blocks west of Lake Michigan. The home's at the northwest corner of Glen Lake and Kenmore Avenues. Next slide. In March, the commission preliminarily found that the building meets criteria for Chicago landmark designation, including criterion 1 for heritage. Next slide. The home's history reflects two aspects of Chicago's heritage. First, the house exemplifies the early residential history and development of the Edgewater neighborhood as an area of high-quality single-family houses and mansions built in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Edgewater began in 1886 as a then suburban real estate development by John Lewis Cochran. Subdivided in stages, Edgewater was designed to be a fashionable commuter railroad suburb, reachable from the city by the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Railroad. Although annexed to Chicago in 1889 as part of Lakeview Township, Cochran strove to keep Edgewater competitive with North Shore suburbs and provided highly developed infrastructure, including sidewalks, sewers, and streetlights to maintain its appeal. Included in this slide is a comparison of the 6100 block, circa 1910 in the center, and from the same vantage point a century later. The dramatic alteration in scale and density illustrated by these images is typical of the current context surrounding the home and makes it one of the best surviving examples of the single-family homes that once made up the neighborhood. Next slide. The Perkins Nordine house, seen here shortly after its construction, was built by a successful businessman, Herbert Farrington Perkins, and his wife, Margaret Head Perkins. She was the daughter of a Chicago manufacturer and banker. Mr. Perkins was drawn to Chicago by the industries that were creating wealth in the city, working for International Harvester and holding positions with the
Candidly, you're breaking up.
lumber, coal, and banking corporations. Yes?
You're breaking up.
Change my location. Is that any better?
Yes,
How's this?
that's much better.
Am I good now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know. Margaret Head Perkins was the daughter of a Chicago manufacturer and banker. Mr. Perkins was drawn to Chicago by the industries that were creating wealth in the city, working for International Harvester and holding positions with the steel, lumber, coal, and banking corporations. The industrial capitalism that buoyed his prospects and those of his neighbors reflects the larger economic story of Chicago around the turn of the 20th century. Next slide, please. The commission also found that the home meets criterion 3 for its association with a person who contributed significantly to the development of the city, state, or nation. Next slide, please. The Perkins Nordine house is significant for its association with Ken Nordine, a nationally recognized spoken word artist who resided and worked in the home from 1951 until 2019. Nordine grew up on Chicago's North Side, and his radio career began at Chicago radio station WBBM in 1938, where he wrote and acted in educational pieces for the Chicago Board of Education. After on-air work in other cities, he returned to Chicago and began a successful career in commercial voiceover work. At the same time, he pursued creative work, including XP shows on local station WND. Upper left corner is a shot from one of those shows called Faces in the Window. By 1951, with this work, he was able to purchase the large home at 6106 North Kenmore. It not only accommodated his growing family, but also allowed him to set up recording studios for his work and artistic pursuits. Next slide, please. Nordine had begun his creative journey not far from Kenmore Avenue, improvising poems in an exchange with musicians at cafes on the north side of Chicago in the early 1950s. In 1957, Ken Nordine's word jazz album featured the established radio and poetry over hip jazz, a new fusion of spoken word and sounds which created novel imagery from the inner thought processes and voice of the 37-year-old creative visionary. In the studios he built at 6106 Kenmore, Nordine did the bulk of commercial and artistic work that brought him acclaim, including the long-running syndicated NPR Word Jazz radio show, multiple albums, including the Grammy-nominated Stare With Your Ears album shown top center, and collaborative work for and with musicians and artists, including Tom Waits. Collaborative work would branch out to work with artists as diverse as Fred Astaire to David Bowie. In the upper right-hand corner is a CD he did working with Jerry Garcia and with guest spots by Tom Waits. pictured in the lower picture in the center. As a Chicagoan, he contributed to the artistic legacy of the city through decades of radio, television, film, fine art, and voiceover work for events such as the Chicago International Film Festival. Next slide. The commission found that the home meets criterion 4 for exemplary architecture. Next slide. The house is a 2.5-story residence designed in the arts and crafts manner, a significant approach to design in the history of Chicago architecture. The home has excellent craftsmanship in traditional building materials, including deep red brick walls and wood details such as the half timbering seen here in the front gable. Next slide. Through its overall architectural design and detailing, the home exemplifies crafts ideals embraced by architects Pond and Pond. These emphasize design clarity, beauty of craft, and inspiration from the artisan past. Materials should be honest in their appearance, depending upon inherent values such as color and texture rather than a false surface and elaborate applied decoration. Materials combined with visible structure such as the half timbering is meant to reference, provided much of the visual appeal of typical arts and crafts influenced buildings. Next slide. Finally, the commission also believes the property meets criterion 5 is the work of a significant architect. Next slide. Pond and Pond, the firm which designed the home, was a significant architectural partnership in Chicago from the 1880s to roughly 1930. Partners and brothers Irving K. and Allen B. Pond were among those striving to develop an indigenous modern American architecture around the turn of the 20th century. They were proponents of the arts and crafts movement and were strongly associated with progressive social and political reform in Chicago, with a portfolio that included most of the Hull House settlement, the Northwestern University Settlement House, and the Chicago Commons settlement. Next slide. The firm produced a wide range of work, including religious, academic, and government buildings, mostly in Chicago and the Midwest. Chicago buildings include the American School of Correspondence and the former City Club of Chicago. Elsewhere in the Midwest, they're best known for student union buildings, such as those at the University of Michigan, Kansas, and Michigan State. Next slide. In addition to the landmark criteria just discussed, the commission found that the Perkins Nordine House also meets the separate integrity criteria. Next slide. The Perkins Nordine House retains its original site, overall building defining exterior details, including almost all the original windows, doors, porch railings, bracketed portico, stair railings, and newel posts. Changes to the building are minor, include the loss of decorative elements to the porch roof, minor changes to some windows, doors, and cladding to select rear portions of the structure. Next slide. At the beginning of this meeting, you heard statements of support from representatives of the Edgewater Historical Society, Preservation Chicago, and Landmarks Illinois. 48th Ward Alderman Harry Osterman is with us this afternoon and would like to make a statement. And of course, the property owners are here. I would like first to take a moment to thank sincerely each and every one of those parties for the vital role they played in making this designation possible, and all those who took time to draft a letter of support or speak in favor of this designation. I'd also like to thank Carl Palmer, the enthusiastic former colleague of Ken Nordine, who provided background materials regarding his work. Special thanks goes to the late Terry Tatum, who volunteered his special expertise on Pond and Pond to research and draft portions of this designation report about the architects and the history of the home and neighborhood. And last but not least, we wish all property owners had the appreciation for historic architecture and personal commitment to preserving it that Richard Logan and Angela Spinazzi, the owners, have. We feel very fortunate they are the proud new owners of 6106 North Kenmore Avenue. I'm available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Kandaleen. I know that Alderman Osterman raised his hand, but why don't we go to the property owners first? Richard Logan and Angela Spinazzi, if you would like to make a statement.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Angela Spinazzi, and I thank you for all of the, thank you for the opportunity to speak. We support this landmark recommendation, and we would like to thank everyone who did all of the hard work. We came in at the very end of this process, and we have seen and want to acknowledge and recognize and let everyone know that we appreciate the significant efforts that they have put forward. We've recently met Kandaleen. She's been wonderful. And we specifically want to call out the Edgewater Historical Society, Preservation Chicago, and all of the others who helped make this happen. We know how much effort it was, and we know what it takes to do this kind of work. So we really appreciate it. And I think we would also just say it's been very interesting to listen to the rest of the conversation of this meeting. We would encourage the city to be more proactive in protecting and preserving and finding ways to creatively and eco-friendly do more adaptive reuse of our shared built environment heritage. We're finding that too much of it has been and continues to be lost. So we are really proud to be the new carers of such a significant part of Chicago history.
Thank you, Ms. Pinassa. Don't go too far because the commissioners may have some questions, but I want to give the microphone to Alderman Osterman.
I just want to first start by saying welcome to the neighborhood, Angela. I want to take a quick moment to thank the commission for all their work. And I also, I wanted to say that I appreciate the designation of the Emmett Till and Mammy Till Mobley House and the significant impact that will have on the Woodlawn community and our entire city. I think it's important to recognize, especially in the times that we're in. And I congratulate Commissioner Cox and my colleague, Alderman Jeanette Taylor, for all the great work. Regarding the Nordine house, it is a pillar in our neighborhood for decades. And as I think Candeline had real eloquently had spoken, our neighborhood has developed over the decades. But to take unique opportunities, and I think Angela brought up being proactive, we're able to save this house. And let's be clear that this could have been bulldozed and we could have had a different outcome today. But I think that what we as a community hope to strive for with the new owners is developing and making sure that this home is preserved for decades to come, and the community can grow around and continue to advance, but in a way that really remembers our heritage and remembers where we have come as a community as part of the city of Chicago. So I'm very proud to be here today for this historic designation and ask the commissioners to support this. I would also want to really thank Commissioner Cox and his staff and the landmark teams with Condoline Hahn and Dejana Kuvola. They were instrumental, and I also, Terry Tatum, when he was with us, for policymakers and aldermen like myself, it's important to have staff who can help us make our preservation efforts a reality. And it can't be done individually in silos, but when we work together as a team, we can have outcomes like we're having today. So I really want to thank them for their hard work. I also want to really acknowledge Preservation Chicago and Ward Miller, Landmarks Illinois, and our wonderful and incredibly motivated Edgewater Historical Society, who pushed and pushed and pushed. It would not take no for an answer, led by Bob Riemer, Kathy Gemberly, Leroy Blumert, Tom Green, Margie Fitchbirch, and many, many others that really made sure that this building is going to be preserved for many, many years to come. The Nordine family has been a wonderful part of our neighborhood for many years, and I think the preservation of this building will really continue to have people celebrate the life of Ken Nordine and all that he did for many, many others. So I'm glad to be here, and I really ask the support of the commission.
Thank you, Alderman. Commissioners, let's start with questions for either the staff, the alderman, or Ms. Pinassa. Commissioners, do you have any questions? I'll start with a question for Ms. Pinassa. Tell us, Ms. Pinassa, what are your plans? What are you planning to do with the building?
Well, I'd like to let everybody know that Richard Logan is here as well. So he
please do. If he wants to speak, that's fine too.
He would like to. He probably would like to share a couple of comments as well. Maybe we could do that first.
Yes, please, Mr. Logan.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon to the members of the commission. The Perkins Nordine House is an oasis in the middle of one of the most dense neighborhoods in this city. And I'd just like to say how pleased we are with the opportunity to protect it and to ensure that it's not only available to the community for decades, but hopefully for centuries. And maybe it can be a catalyst to changing the way the neighborhood develops in the future. We'll see if this can be a place more for families and less for sardines. So thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions, as is Angela.
Thank you. My question is, what are the plans?
Angela, please.
Well, either one of us could answer that question. Our plans are to, bring life back into this house and to, treat it with the respect that it had when it was built. Our goal is to really, let the materials speak, and they will tell us what we need to do. So we know that really, really good materials were used to build the house. It's why it's managed to survive this long. And our goal is to restore those windows and put on a roof that actually looks like a roof that would have been there in the in the beginning, and bring back the garden. I know that has nothing to do with this commission, but there's some beautiful trees there that also need some lower bushes around it that for nature to come back to the city. There's a lot of nature actually there already, and we're looking forward to having more.
Thank you. I think that Commissioner Hughes raised her hand.
I just want to say really quickly that I am extremely ecstatic to see where this home is now versus where it was the last time we saw it. And the case, just how it's transformed, and it sounds like it's in loving, caring hands now. And I personally can't wait to see it in the future when it's brought back to life.
Thank you. Commissioner Cox.
Yeah, I think building off of Commissioner Hughes's point, I just hope that it goes, it doesn't go unnoticed what it takes to preserve a single building. I mean, it literally takes a village to preserve a neighborhood, and both in the case of the Emmett Thiel house and this house, you see an owner, you see someone who's willing to purchase it. Sometimes they will even resell it because they may not be the right owner, but for this particular house, it's fallen into the right hands, and you can just tell by the way that she speaks about it that it's going to be lovingly restored. When we started this, we were talking about, how you could develop on the remaining part of the site. And now we're talking about a garden. So I just think that it's been really fascinating to see this coalition that starts ultimately with an alderman who is also willing to step forward and preserve, a willing seller, a willing buyer, an incredibly talented staff that knows how to partner with the preservation organizations. I mean, it literally takes a village, and I just hope that we continue to just expand that village and who participates in that village. And I think we will be able to preserve more and more of the everyday culture of Chicago. So I just want to thank everyone for how this developed. And I think it's a great case study amongst many case studies that we can learn from.
Thank you. And just let me say that for the benefit of Mr. Logan and Ms. Pinace, I do live 3 blocks away from this house, so I'll be keeping an eye on what progress is made in the building, as well as Alderman Osterman. I believe that he's in the near neighborhood. So, Alderman Osterman.
I walk by it all the time, and just want to say to everybody that when this is all done and we're through with COVID, we will have a nice garden party with some jazz from Ken Nordine. So you'll all be invited.
Thank you. I look forward to doing that. So, commissioners, do you have any other questions? Okay, I don't see anybody raising their hands. So I'd like to request a motion to adopt the final landmark recommendation to City Council for the Perkins Nordine House.
So moved by Commissioner Cox.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Hughes seconded. Let me do a roll call. Commissioner Wong?
Aye.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Commissioner Osmond?
Aye.
Commissioner Tolliver?
Yes.
Commissioner Aguirre?
Yes.
And I, as chairman, ratify the motion. Congratulations, and I look forward to the completion of the work in this building. And as I said, I'll be driving and walking by the building frequently.
Thank you,
We'll
sir.
look out for you.
Thank you. Let's move to the permit. Thank you, Alderman Osterman, also. Let's move to the Permit Review Committee reports for the project's review at the September 3rd, 2020 Permit Review Committee meeting. Commissioner Wong.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Where did I put this? The Permit Review Committee reviewed 3 projects at its September 3rd, 2020 meeting. All 3 projects were approved with conditions. The report summarizing the scope of the proposed projects and the committee's decisions was included in your packets. This report is for your information and for the record.
Thank you. Let's move on to the report on decisions, permit decisions made by the staff for the month of September. And Larry Shure will make the presentation. I'm sorry, before we got there. No, please go ahead. I made a mistake. Go ahead, Larry.
Sure. For the month of September, staff reviewed 145 permit applications. One of these applications relate to projects reviewed by the Permit Review Committee. A total of 150 reviews were performed by staff, and the average number of days to issue the approval or corrections was 3.8 days. Staff also reviewed 18 sign applications during that period. In addition to the above reviews, staff also approved 1 emergency demolition permit for 2107 North Cleveland in the Mid-North Historic District. So on September 17th, the permit application to demolish this building was released. This was done pursuant to a memo from the Department of Buildings, finding that the structure was imminently dangerous and hazardous. As you probably know, the Historic Preservation Ordinance provides that should such a finding be made by the Department of Buildings, the demolition must be approved. Additional updates or review of the work to the site will be brought to the Commission when available. Commission staff is consulting with the Department of Law regarding next steps.
I do have a question about that. What was that demolition because of neglect, or obviously it was an emergency demolition, but let's not forget that we develop rules and recommendations for negotiating with the property owners or imposing penalties for the property owners for allowing buildings to deteriorate and being demolished. Do you have any insights into that, Laura?
You know, I can say I don't understand the complete history of that building. I believe that the structure was endangered due to collapsing foundation, but I can say that we are looking into what should be done next, given the situation.
Thank you. Commissioner, Alderwoman Smith, I see that you raised your hand. I'll give you the podium in a minute. But commissioners, do you have any questions for Larry? Okay, there'll be none. Alderwoman Smith, would you like to make a statement?
Well, yes, I'd like to comment on this report. We have asked the law department to bring an action against the owner of this building, and I understand that that is under consideration, because neighbors reported to our office that illegal and it was confirmed, illegal excavation had been going on at the site. And the building was for sale, and the sale was contingent on the demolition of the building. So this came into our office. We were told by a prospective buyer that that was the case. We alerted Landmarks. We alerted the building department. We had investigators out. It was kind of an ugly scene. And we fought to have shoring, to have the building department require shoring instead of allowing the building to come down. So we are very concerned. This is, frankly, in a community that has property values that are quite high, like our community, requests for demolition are always a threat. And we will be coming up with that same threat in a few minutes. But in this case, sort of under dark of night, an owner started excavating ostensibly to try to get more storage space. And these old buildings, as you know, have rubble foundations from the fire. And so we strongly believe that this building was allowed to collapse. We had an independent builder and architect who's an excellent landmark preservation builder come in, and he said, I think this building can be saved. I will shore it. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. So Diana Cavallo certainly told me that the city was investigating and referring it to the law department, and we sincerely hope that that will happen.
Thank you for that information, Alderwoman. That's very useful. Commissioner Cox, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I just wanted to elaborate on the Alderwoman's comments because she brought this to our attention when the building was still standing. Even though the side wall had collapsed, and we immediately wanted to understand legally what the city could do to assure that this, if this is a case of demolition by neglect, that the purpose for that neglect to sell a cleared site, that owner would not be able to do that. So it would be a shame to lose that as a site with a business in it or people living there. But if the plan was to demolish it by neglect, then he should not be able to turn around and sell it to someone so that it can be developed. And so I don't know, I know that legal is making a deliberation on this and that and I don't know if law is on the call and can explain a little what tools the city has available when something like this happens, but I think it would be just good general information, both for the commissioners as new commissioners, but also as the general public, as a kind of cautionary tale that if you allow your buildings to deteriorate, that does not mean that you will then be able to easily sell and have something be built on it. The city does have mechanisms to fight back against those type of cases. But I'm not a lawyer, so I don't want to venture to say what those tools are. But if law is in one of these boxes and would like to speak to the options that the Landmarks Commission and the city has, I would appreciate that. See, Michael Gaynor is with us. So,
yeah, and let me say that for the benefit of the newer commissioners, that we confronted similar situations in the past, and the commission developed specific guidelines and penalties. And I'm going to ask Michael from the legal department to address what those penalties are. Sometimes it becomes difficult to prove that a property may have been demolished by neglect, but nonetheless, I'm sure that the legal department will take every step to investigate this take the necessary action. Michael?
Sure. Hello, Commissioners. Yes, Section 910 of the Landmark Ordinance provides that if a owner willfully or through gross neglect causes all or part of a landmark property to be demolished, the penalty, demolished or substantially destroyed, the penalty is that for 5 years after that demolition, no permits can be issued on that, demolished vacant site, and that for 20 years after that 5 years, any permits, for new construction on the building have to go through the Landmark Commission's permit review process. So it's a 5-year freeze, and then 20 years of any permits have to go through the Landmark permit review process. I do know, I want to make clear to everyone, during these meetings, I'm representing the Commission, not the Department of Buildings or the Department of Planning, but I do know that my colleagues in our buildings litigation group are indeed looking at trying to build a case to prove willful or gross neglect in this case. I know that they've alerted the property owners to this, possibility or intention. And it's my understanding that the prospective buyer also understands that that issue is out there. But beyond that, like I said, I'm representing the Commission today, and I even as the case goes forward, I wouldn't be representing Department of Buildings or Department of Planning in that case. But I understand that they are, considering how to build that case. But the penalty then is again 5 years of no permits and 20 years after that of permits having to go through the Landmarks review process.
Thank you. Commissioner Osmond. Commissioner Osmond?
The concern I have is, of course, that, how do we move quicker on this, because the building's lost. So, what's the process? Because these things really have to happen within a 24, 48 hour turnaround. So it's no good going to legal. We've already lost the building. So I think there's a disconnect here on what that process is. And I'd like to understand from staff, how do we get somebody on site right away to make a change?
If I could ask Commissioner Cox.
No, the chronology, I suspect that the alderman can explain it better than I, but I can assure you there were inspectors on that site the moment there was a failure on the sidewall, while the front facade that we saw in the slide was still standing. And so they were on it the moment it was reported. And I think there were complications about getting access to the site, because you can't go on a private owner's site unless they invite you onto it. And so I don't remember all the details, but I recall the conversation that the alderman and I had as we were trying to figure out how to intervene before the front facade collapsed, to your point.
Alderwoman Smith, can you shed some light?
Yes, I'm happy to share this sordid story with the Commission. As I mentioned, we found out about it because an attorney called us saying, "Oh, gee whiz," and I think emailed us, "I'm checking out for a client who might be interested in buying this property, but I know it's a landmark district, and they say they're going to demolish it." And so we're like, whoa, and we immediately got on the phone with everyone, including the Commissioner. We also got in touch with the Mid-North Association, which is our local neighborhood association there. And, we all ran down to the site. I think this was on like a Thursday. And attorneys for the owner were on site, really getting into arguments with neighbors who were standing around saying, we're going to get this down. And there were many more dramatic details. And we immediately called the Commissioner. 3 inspectors showed up on site. And at that point, the front facade was completely up, but the sidewall, which was adjacent to a neighbor, had collapsed, and the adjoining gangway was starting to collapse. Originally, we thought that a pipe had burst because there was a drain there, and that had led to the problem. But we subsequently learned from other witnesses, meaning the neighbors, that people had been excavating there for some time and didn't really understand what it was about. So we were able to convince the building commissioner, the owners had already applied for a demolition permit, for an emergency demolition permit. And we were able to, I spoke to the building commissioner, Commissioner Cox, and we were able to stop a demolition that was about to occur like that day. And it went on for about a week while we tried to get emergency shoring done. And as I said, an independent guy wanted to get on and do the shoring, and he was denied access to the property, as were an independent engineer retained by the Mid-North Association, who wanted to try to see the property so that they could evaluate for themselves the engineer's report that the owner had. So the city inspectors, several days passed, nothing happened. And the city inspectors did go back, went into this basement, this dirt basement, and said, you know, we think that at this point the side walls can fall down. And we really do think it's a danger and there's nothing we can do. And the applicant would not cooperate and even had been given a quote on the shoring and all that. So about a week later, the emergency demolition permit was issued, and a day or two later, I think it was a Saturday night, an excavator appeared and took down the building. The front facade never fell down. It was taken down. The entire thing was cleared in a matter of moments. You know how quickly that is done. So we were assured by Landmarks that they were going to be working on legal action. Obviously, I agree with you, Commissioner. We are really angry. And I don't know if there's a better process, but we would certainly welcome working on it. There are buildings in our community that have been in far worse shape, including one that's been before the buildings department that we also thought that a developer was trying to make fall down. And that building, which is at 1760 North Sedgwick, has now been, thanks to the law department and Landmark staff, has now been completely rehabilitated, and I bet it's going to win the Landmark Award because it's a beautiful renovation. So when we can work together and actually get stuff stopped and put buildings into receivership, which is what we had to do on Sedgwick Street, we can stop these things from happening. But unfortunately, we couldn't, and we're all very upset about it. And we really encourage the commission to work with us to make sure that a very strong legal action is taken.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Thank you, Alderwoman. Let me say something here. I know that Commissioner Wong wants to speak as well as the attorney, but let me make sure that we understand that we have to give the legal department some time here to investigate this situation and get back to us with a final resolution and recommendation. I'm sure that they will do their best to impose the penalties that are appropriate. It is unfortunate because of the negligence, and I shouldn't say negligence, because the actions of the property owner, it resulted in the demolition. We haven't determined that there was negligence. That will be for the legal department to determine. It looks that way, but I don't want to get into any litigation of this transaction here and the potential penalties. Let me ask the staff to get back to us in about a month, 2 months, with a report on what the legal department has investigated and has determined is the appropriate course of action. But we understand, Commissioner Osmond and Alderwoman, the frustration of allowing this to happen. But I feel reassured that the Department of Planning and Development and the building departments were there on time, but there may have been enough damage done to the building that it became a hazard for and danger for the community. So let's not rush to judgment now. Let's wait for the legal department to conduct the investigation. I'll ask the staff, Larry or Deanna, to come back to us in a couple of months with a report on what the decision is and what the investigation shows. With that in mind, let me call on Commissioner Wong, who raised his hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, you also mentioned that Mr. Gaynor also had raised his hand.
Yes.
Okay, you know what? Let me do this. I actually had a question for
Michael?
Mr. Gaynor
Okay.
regarding what he had just mentioned, that the penalty can result up to, what is it, 5 years of,
And I,
go ahead.
Michael? Yeah,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Commissioner Wong. I actually misspoke. There was more recent. Deanna reminded me that there was a more recent amendment last year, where now the penalties are $1,000 to $2,000, plus depending on where the city prosecutes the case. If it's prosecuted in administrative hearings, there can be a 2-year freezing of any permits. If we prosecute it in circuit court, we could get up to 10 years. So.
Okay.
Sorry. So yes. Sorry for
So looking at that, you know, I find it kind of interesting because in my mind, you know, as a whole, when somebody starts to do these kind of activities to, you know, force this demolition, it is not that much different than insurance fraud when you want to burn down your building and collect the insurance, which is significantly a higher crime than this, but I mean, or significantly higher penalty. And I'm wondering whether, you know, because quite frankly, a $1,000 to $2,000 fine in 2 years is nothing. If you go ahead and you purposely destroy your property in order to demolish it. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up, that when you start to look at the equivalent of what this is.
That's what I said. Let us allow the legal department to explore this, because it could also result in a 10-year moratorium that nothing gets built in this property.
Right.
So if you, Commissioner Wong and I, if you recall our discussions in the past, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago when we talked about the moratorium, and somehow the 10 years stuck in my mind. So I'm sure that if we can get 10-year moratorium, that will be a substantial penalty for the property owner. But again, let's wait for the legal department to come back to us. And what I'll ask Commissioner Cox and the staff of the Department of Planning and Development is to push for the most hard penalties that we can impose.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Cox.
Yeah, I just, what was interesting, thank you, Mr. Gaynor, for further elaborating on that, because I didn't understand the penalty component of this. Can you clarify whether the penalties are set by the city or are they set by the state? Because one might argue that you know, a $1,000 or $2,000 penalty, as was mentioned, doesn't hurt that much. But if we have the ability to set the amount of the penalty, then I think that's a policy effort that we could potentially change in the future. But I just wanted to get some further clarity as to who sets the penalty amount. Is it an act of city council? Is it a state? How is that determined?
It's in section 910. It's in section 910 of the landmark ordinance. That's what refers to the not less than $1,000 nor more than $2,000 fine for each offense. And so I couldn't really. I suppose it's possible that we could prosecute for more than one offense at a building.
But could the ordinance be changed?
Oh yes, city council could change the ordinance.
Well, you know, Alderman Smith, if you would be interested in co-sponsoring an effort to put a more stringent penalty, being that I hope that this is a very, very rare occurrence in our city. So yes, we could be, it should hurt for the very, very few people who allow this to happen. And if that's a question of city council amending the ordinance, I'd be happy to explore that with you.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. We will enthusiastically get that going, because it happens more often than we would like in our neighborhood. You know, when people think they're going to make millions of bucks, it's not much of a disincentive. So we very much would support increasing the penalties. We'd be delighted to work with you.
Chairman Raphael,
yeah,
if I might make a statement as well.
sure.
Thank you. This is Deanna Kowal. I just wanted to, as Commissioner Cox was not present in 2018 when this amendment was made to the actual landmarks ordinance regarding this penalties and remedies section, and many members of the commission were not there as well. Just to clarify, the fine that was just mentioned of $1,000 to $2,000 for each offense, every day on which a violation exists counts as an offense. So it is not, it is really dependent on the circumstances, the length of the offenses. It is not just a set fine. And so that was really reviewed through City Council 2 years ago when this whole discussion happened to make sure that there are disincentives to clarify how the violations would be pursued, to raise these fines, and also to clarify the moratorium provisions. And it is really through courts that this would need to be deliberated. And the two paths are administrative hearings, as Michael mentioned, or circuit court. And Department of Law evaluates what process it should follow depending on the circumstances of the case. So I'm just speaking, obviously, regarding the general provisions of the code. This particular case, we will provide updates when we have some resolution. We just wanted to say that we are in conversations with law to review this.
Thank you, Diana, for that clarification. Because if I remember correctly, it was $1,000 to $2,000 per day, as you indicated. So if a violation is identified, and this will be determined by the court, I believe, that is a 30-day, it could potentially be a $30,000 to a $60,000 violation, plus the moratorium in terms of the redeveloping the property. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that. And yeah, I recall that we felt very uncomfortable about the 1,000 to 2,000, but when it was further clarified that it was per violation and the violation is on a daily basis, then that made more sense. Again, I want to hear from the legal department about what the final resolution, but if we can impose the hardest penalty, the harshest penalty that we can impose, that would be good. Okay, Commissioner Hughes.
Thank you so much, Deanna. That clarification was very helpful. My question is actually about the moratorium for development. If the property is forced to be vacant for 10 years, what does that really do? How does that benefit the community? What other options have the legal department explored to, change that? Because I feel like, first of all, is the owner still deserving of maintaining that property if they've willfully harmed it? And again, if it's 10 years of stagnation, no development on this property, how does that benefit the community?
Diana, can you address that?
Or
Diana or Michael?
I can attempt to respond, and maybe Michael can expand on that. When the discussion regarding the moratorium, it is intended to be up to a certain number of years as a deterrent. The whole reason for this modifications and amendment was to really bring to attention that the commission takes seriously when properties are willfully endangered or through neglect, and we did not previously have demolition by neglect provisions, so that was part of the reason for change. And increasing the 5-year to 10-year is again another sign that it can hurt someone when they sit on a vacant lot for up to 10 years. It does not mean that is what
would be pursued necessarily or what the outcome could be. There could be a whole slew of different resolutions depending on each case that is determined through that whole process. If there are any decisions to be made regarding any development of the site, that would come to the commission before any approvals are given or any agreements reached through the settlements, for example. And that is, and maybe Michael has something further to say on that.
Just what Deanna said, that it's up to 2 years if we go through administrative hearings, up to 10 years if we go through the circuit court. So, you know, presumably if I'm just speculating here, you know, if a property owner were willing to stipulate so as to settle the litigation, you know, maybe we'd arrive at some sort of a middle ground. But that's what the penalties are, up to 2 or up to 10, depending on the forum, and $1,000 to $2,000 in fines for each offense for each day. And that just becomes a matter of whether the city can, you know, whether the city can prove up the number of offenses and the number of days.
Yeah. So I want to stop this conversation right here, in part because I don't want to get into a litigating this transaction. I think that we have provided enough information right now for the commissioners to know that there are penalties for allowing demolition by neglect, that the penalties are $1,000 to $2,000 per day of the violation, and the moratorium that ranges from 5 to 10 years, depending on the venue. But again, it's going to be driven by the best case that the legal department puts forward in defending our recommendation. So if I could ask the staff to report back in 2 or 3 months when you have more clarity about this, I would really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. This has been a very interesting conversation. There are no more items on the agenda. So at this point, I'd like to request a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Tolliver. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Osmo. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? And thank you, everybody. The Permit Review Committee will start in what, 5 minutes? 5 minutes. In the meantime, I ask everybody to mute the microphone and turn off your video because the live stream continues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.